the first thing is like making it about the recipient, me, the buyer, or is it about the sender? And the really quick way that you can do that is looking at the language used. It's oftentimes like, hey, John, I'm reaching out because I do this and my company does that and we can do this. And all of that says is cool. You just emailed me to tell me all about you and I don't care yet, right? No one cares about you or your product if you're a stranger. You need to earn that right and earn that interest and that trust. And so a quick test is the how many I sentences do you have versus how many you sentences. And so I know it's really hard to cut the pronoun I completely. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I try to limit only one sentence that starts with I and limit the we and my company stuff and make it all about you. Hey, John, I saw you were on a podcast and you said you care about this. That's why I'm reaching out, because I can help you do this. Not what we do, but we can help you. That subtle change will make it feel, John is obviously my muse today, that John's like, oh, this person I don't know you, but you know me because you just explained it to me and kind of showed me. So that's a really quick test.
There's a quick tip there. Look to the left of every email that you craft. If you see a bunch of I's and me's and we's in there, you are talking about you too much. Look to the left and you'll see all the I's are just stacked up right there.
Yeah.
And here's another small tip on that. I used to write all my emails that would start with, I was researching your account and I saw this.
Yep.
Even though it's about them, switch that. Here's a small nuance. In researching your company, I saw this. So you're just not starting with I. But going to Devin's point, making it about them, we go here at JB Sales, we use the AIDA framework, old school AIDA, Glengarry Glen Ross, that whole thing. The movie's kind of great, but it's a terrible sales movie. Anyways, but it's everything that's wrong about selling. Watch Tommy Boy instead. But anyways, if you think of the fundamental process of sales, attention, interest, desire, action, right? First, something needs to get our attention. Then we have to be interested. Then we have to have a desire. Then we have to move to act. So if you think of the subject line, and you assume everything on every email is being read on this. So the subject line has to get my attention. But that first sentence, now that you can read those first 10 words right there, that has to get me, that's just as important as the subject line now. So that has to get me interested. And to Devin's point, what am I interested in? Me.
The readability is like, how easy is it to read, literally is what it means. But think about like what you're actually looking for is white space. So when you first look at a block of text, like someone emails you, or like, it's like when people are arguing with their girlfriend or boyfriend, you get those screenshots of just like the wall of text. That is not very readable. No one wants to dive into that. You're getting a novel, you're like chapter 4, where were you last night? So you don't want to dive into that. What you want to do is put as much white space as possible, because your brain looks at it and goes, oh, this isn't a lot of work. This is easy. I can dive into it. And so on LinkedIn, I know it's kind of gone a little extreme for some folks and become like broetry, but I'll explain how to avoid that. But the first sentence for your email, the first sentence for your, have you not heard of that? Oh, dude, that's a good one. So
I haven't heard that before.
I'm taking that one home with me, buddy.
Oh, dude, I'll get into that in a second. But if you're on LinkedIn, I always start with a short 1-sentence paragraph, because it's like 5 to 10 words. It's easy for you to get in, like to read it. And then I'm trying to propel you to the next sentence, to the next sentence, to the next sentence. Same thing for your email. Don't say, hey, don't worry about the language I'm using just for example. Like, hey, John, I was on your website and I noticed that you hired James and now you're scaling out your team internationally. And for that reason, I think dude, too many breaths. It should be one quick breath. That's a good way to kind of tell. Yep. And then, you can have 2 sentences in your email, right? Like, to have a little bit of a paragraph, but really start to think of how much white space am I showing versus blocks. And we've even A/B tested this at Gong in our email marketing database, because someone was like, I hate it. I hate that single line thing. Why do we do that? That doesn't make any sense. And I was like, let's A/B test it to prove, like, I think I'm right, but let's make sure I know what I'm talking about. And the response rates were higher for the exact same copy, the exact same words, but just spaced out differently. So it was more readable. Broetry is, just for real quick. Yeah. I wasn't going to let you off it. Is essentially like, it's very short sentences, choppy, overly emotional, right? So it's like, last week I came home at 11:35 from the office. I was sad. It was heartbreaking. I saw that this thing happened. Therefore, it's like super choppy, very highly emotional, unnecessarily dramatic. You can avoid that by just writing how you speak, and then just putting, like I said, good line breaks in there to help your reader out.
Yeah. And just as a small, easy benchmark is max 2 scrolls on the iPhone. max. I try to go one.
One is ideal. Yeah.
Yep.
I like write how you speak. I always tell people, read what you wrote out loud. Do you talk like that? If you don't talk like that, don't send it like that. That's a
we
key
don't use
thing
a lot
for me.
of
I read a lot out
syllable
loud.
words. We don't use a lot of 4-syllable words. We don't use a lot of 3-syllable words. You know, we use some, but not a lot. And like, you don't use the marketing jargon. If you copy and pasted it from your website, it's probably product marketing, and that's okay, but it's not how people speak.
I'm going to just as a small nuance to that though, if you're thoughtful enough to go read somebody else's post and see how they write, and they're using slightly bigger words and a little bit more articulate than you might be, then you can lean into that a little bit. But if you don't know, right? Because that's the whole mirroring thing.
It's
mirror you, right? And there's a power to mirroring people. So if you are really kind of socially stalking somebody and you're into their posts and you're reading their posts and they use big words and they're really thoughtful and really intelligent, that person's actually going to respond to somebody who uses big words and is really intelligent. They're not going to respond like an idiot like me, who's going to be like, hey, what's up? You know, that type of thing. So like, I'm not a Rhodes Scholar over here. So like, but mirror your audience in a lot of ways if you can.
That's a great call out.
I don't have a hot take. There's some resources out there that you can use to actually figure this out. But the one that oddly enough still gets the highest, which I don't understand, is when you do your name greater than, less than, symbol, company's name. It still gets the highest. For us, it gets about a 40% open rate. I'm not saying response rate, because the response rate's based on the actual email itself. But if I were to do JB Sales greater than, less than, Gong, or Devin, something like that, that's what gets us the highest response rate now. Smallest. That's a very tactical one. But there's others. And again, there's tools and resources that you can use to analyze various resources. And Gong obviously gives us a ton of data on it. So are there ones that stand out from the data, Devin?
We haven't done subject lines yet on the data part, but I can share 2 things I've seen work really, really well. So one is a question works really well, but a short question can't say, you know, how are you operationalizing your remote workforce ? That's way too long. It's not going to get opened. But there's things they can do, like I've done things like at risk ? But then the email is about like, hey, how we can help you de-risk your deals, right? For example. So it can't just be random, but there's 2 other frameworks that I use. So I usually either do tactical or mystery. So tactical would be like, 3 ways to win more deals with LinkedIn. Now, if I sent that out, that's probably more of a batch email, right? Because it's not very specific, but maybe the group of people I'm talking to have LinkedIn, are trying to build pipeline, and would be interested in using LinkedIn to build pipeline. So if I know that's what they care about, you can be pretty specific and people will go, yeah, I'm interested in that. Click to open. The other one. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. What's the other one?
The other one is mystery, which is the complete opposite, where you're specifically trying to spark curiosity and not really saying what's inside. So it could be like, found it, ! Or like, is this right ? And then inside, excuse me, now I got it. Inside, you do have to hit it, like within the first sentence or 2, you need to hit on why you were vague at the beginning. Otherwise it feels like a bait and switch. So like one thing would be like we did it for a while. I was like, found it. And then inside I was like, hey, I was digging through my notes and I found this research that I have never published before. I wanted to share it with you. It's like, oh, okay, cool. That's connected now. It makes sense. And again, these are both a little bit more of a general broad sense. But yeah, mystery and tactical.
Otherwise, reference your research. Like if you're going to do quality and you're going to do research and you found something on somebody's blog, you know, for me, it'd be like, John, blog or make your podcast episode 123, you know, that type of thing. And I'd be like, what about my podcast or your article in Inc. magazine? It's like, what's that? Right. So if you're personalized with it, the one thing I will say is on the bait and switch piece, please don't use like bullshit tactics to get people to open up. Specifically this one, because I know too many people do it, because there's data out there that says putting RE in the subject line increases open rates. That's fine if you want a thread. Okay. A way to do it the right way is send one email with an original subject line, whatever you want it to be, and then reply all to it. And there's your RE, but don't you dare put RE in the first email. And I had somebody, you know, on a webinar a while back being like, oh, well, that's in regards to. I'm like, shut up. You know what you're doing. Okay. Like you're pretending, because if I don't care how personalized your email is, if I open up your email because it looks like a RE and I had responded to it and I find out it's a first one, I literally don't care what you're selling. I don't care how personalized it is. I will delete your email because you're a sleazy little sales rep using that little minor trick. Because look, give me, people talk tips and tricks, tips all day long, tricks piss off. All right. Those are the type of things that piss people off like me.
Okay, there's two things I like and one thing I don't like. So the first thing I'm going to go with don't like, so you don't just copy and paste this. The copy isn't super great. So I'm just going to be honest. The copy isn't super great, but I like this because every time I get a prospecting email, I read it one, do I care? And then I read it as, can I learn from this, good or bad? Because I run a team of marketing. I help salespeople. So like really interesting. Now, the first thing I like probably caught your eye. Someone did a drawing. There's an illustration in this. And that's actually exactly where my eye went. I read the first sentence question, John, just like you prescribed earlier. Yep. And so how am I consistently connecting, creating compelling content? Too many C's and there's a typo, but it's all good. And so I was like, I know what you're trying to say. Let's get into the graphic. Now, what's interesting is I actually identified with this problem immediately because I'm the bottleneck a lot of times for my team as head of content. Yep. So I'm like, oh shit. They're describing a problem I kind of knew I had, and they're like making it glaringly obvious. And so I was like, this worked really well. Then I read the rest of the email, didn't love it, but I did reply. Yeah. So the thing I liked a lot and the tip to take away, one, the first sentence was short and a good hook. Yeah. The illustration was different and stood out, and it very clearly and quickly helped me understand the problem that I have, and I'm assuming they solve. The third thing was readability. When you go back to read this, I think it's 3 sentences, very short, very concise. And the interesting part, and I know this pretty quickly, this was not a one-off. This was a blast email that they put in a bunch of head of content marketing people in, which I thought was even, we all do it. Like, it's all good. It's okay to have tier 2, like, relevant sends versus personalized sends. I thought it was really well done, given some of the tweaks I had mentioned before. So I really like this. I actually took this illustration, changed it and started using it in some of my own emails.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I just, please, if you're listening still, look, the holy grail is personalization and relevance. That's the holy grail. But if you're going to force me to choose between personalization or relevance, I'm going relevance all day long.
Yep.
Just because I went to University of Maryland does not buy you any points these days. I was blackout drunk for 4 years going through Maryland. I don't remember that. I'm a 46-year-old man too. You'd be like, but I still get emails that say, hey, Jonas, you went to U Maryland, go Terps. And then it hard cuts to some value proposition that literally has nothing to do with but that question, if you can ask me a very relevant question, hey, John, as the CEO of a sales training organization, how have you made the switch from on-site to remote delivery and retained your revenue streams? Like, that is an extremely relevant question you can ask somebody like me that gets me interested. And guess what? You can blast that out to 50 other CEOs of sales training organizations if you want.
Yep.
That's how you do scale.
John, the emails that get your attention have heavy personalization. Almost every, but they're also highly relevant to you. And they kind of encompass pieces of your content. They get your attention right away. Break this 100%. One down for us.
100%. Well, first of all, look at the readability. To Devin's point, look at the line spacing on this one, right? Nice and easy to read. Even though there's a lot of sentences on here, this does not look overwhelming for me to read, right? And right out of the gate, remember how I said I was researching? She just cuts right into it and says, in episode, your colleague mentioned that you read every email. She didn't even mention anything about the episode itself, right? So she said, why not email me? You already know how important it is to stay educated in order. So she goes through this, by the way. Now, this is an important point. I did not respond to her. But what I did do is I forwarded it to Megan. A lot of times you don't know if your email is going to get responded to in what's happening. You can still look at open rates, right? But executives like me, I delegate a lot of stuff to a lot of different people. And I'll just say, hey, James, any interest in this? And if there's no interest, I won't, nothing. But if there is, go to the next screen, look at the response here. And she did such a fantastic job, not just following through on that initial email, but she also, after she talked to Megan, and by the way, Megan up at the top there wrote this email to us as an organization to say, hey, major props to this prospecting outreach. You see below this sent to John, what was quoted in this, spoke to her. And then she actually even posted on LinkedIn about her conversation with Megan, complimenting us about how we go all in on stuff. And so there's literally almost like, this is a straight, like, I don't even know what she's selling, but yes, like, I'm going to have this conversation. Megan's going to have this conversation with her, and I'm going to give her total props for doing this because she followed all the way through with that personalization.
Well, we can't have a email share-a-thon without showing you stuff that we send. So John, talk to us about this one.
This one's a little chunky. It kind of follows my little older version of, even though I sent this out 6 months ago and got a response, by the way. This is me doing my own prospecting. People still don't think I prospect. I still prospect as the CEO of this company because prospecting is the thing that keeps pipelines full and makes sure I never need the business. So needless to say, I was just scrolling through LinkedIn, came across how Crisp, the company I was going after, they had a no hate campaign. Made me take a closer look. So a lot of times what you can do is you could say, hey, I saw this, and it actually made me take a closer look at you. So that's how you can actually connect the relevance there. We're just like, hey, I saw something interesting. Like you said something like totally random, right? But what it did was it forced me to go take a look deeper at your organization. And I love your mission. I'm a big fan of lining up with mission values, stuff like that, especially at the C-suite, even though I got shredded for that on TikTok, by the way. By the way, if anybody wants to see me get my ass kicked on TikTok, join John M. Barrows and you'll see 500 people telling me I'm an idiot. But anyways,
501, because I'm going to go follow you.
Yeah, it's literally like, no, one of my posts went viral. I have 400,000 views on it of talking about going to the C-suite to get a job, and 500 of the comments are telling me how stupid I am. So anyways, but and then I said, I noticed you worked at sales. So I put a couple of things in there, right? There's like probably 2 or 3 triggers / reasons. And I got a response within 20 minutes on this one. I got a meeting out of it. Nice. So I probably, looking back on it, Devin, to your point, readability factor here, if you do chunk this down onto a phone frame, it looks a little chunky. Yeah. So I'd probably segment it out a little bit more just from a readability. But this one gets me responses almost every time. Like not every time, but probably I get about a 25% response rate when I do this type of thing.
Not bad. For those of you that think that leaders don't prospect, the ones that do have those healthy pipelines and their teams follow suit and they have healthy pipelines, prospecting is life. That's what we default to here. We do it constantly. If we have a moment, it's usually used for prospecting. James, the email that I have.
Oh, can I give two quick call outs?
Yeah.
One is tone. So John did it on this bottom email where he goes, I noticed your website you work with, So do we. That little thing, it's not like, and we also have them as clients. The way that you wrote that was like, oh, this is like a normal person. You know what I mean? And it had that tone. The other gal, I don't know if you want to go back, James, the other gal did a really good job too of the whole like, hey, if this doesn't work out, I got to email John Barrows. Or sorry, maybe it was this one, the first one he was talking about. But like that, there's like some humility in there. It's like, it's personal, but not in the way we've been talking about it today. It's just personal, like, of a human being. Please, like, I want to encourage you to do that. You're not trying to be cute. You're not trying to be funny. You're just being a human being. And these are the things that also stand out. Like, I loved that line. If no worries, we're not for everyone. I just wanted a chance to say, email John Barrows. John, I don't think you're an easy person to make smile, but I bet you cracked like a little side. All right. You know what I mean? That is phenomenal. The other thing I was going to say, just because John was saying this was a little chunky, there's just like right before I send something, I just do a quick pass and I go, is there any words that I could remove to say it quicker? Are there any phrases that are redundant? Is there any way I can just ultimately say the same thing in less words to make it more readable? It's a quick 60-second exercise. Often reading it aloud, like you said earlier, James, helps with that. You're like, oh wait, I kind of just said that a second ago. Let me erase it. Those are things that are going to have a big impact on the readability in your response rates.
That's great. The example that I have up here is one that got a meeting from me right away. And it was just because they came to a webinar, they personalized this email heavily. The phone number that they sent me was a 20-year-old phone number because data decay is a real problem in our space. But still, I was like, yo, great job. I mean, it was my old phone number. I was like, great job. Like, this guy got my attention immediately.